On the rooftop of the 18th floor teaching building of the Shueiyun Martial Arts School in Tianlin City, a man looked up at the sky, his face filled with sorrow. If you're going to jump, then hurry up and jump. You've been standing there for 5 minutes. At the stairwell, an old security guard sat on a chair, leisurely drinking hot water. The newly arrived middle-aged security guard next to him was sweating profusely with anxiety. Young man, even if you don't have talent in martial arts, you can do other jobs. Besides, with your good looks, even if you became a gigolo, you'd definitely become the king of gigolos. Hearing this, Chen couldn't help but look at the old security guard. Sir, is this Uncle New? The old security guard nodded. That's right, with that jump, he probably lost his job too. The security guards at Shueiyun Martial Arts Academy don't earn low salaries. The middle-aged security guard was stamping his feet in anxiety. Brother, how can you be so calm? The student is about to jump. The old security guard said unhurriedly, Young Zhang, this kid has absolutely no talent for martial arts. The martial arts exam is almost here, and he doesn't even have a drop of qi or blood in his body. At the same time, two young women walked up from downstairs. One of them was strikingly beautiful and tall. The girl beside her was even more stunning, with a beauty mark at the corner of her eye adding to her charm. A long pink dress accentuated her stunning figure, while her long, purplish-pink hair made her even more alluring. Her name is Ying. Seeing Chen on the rooftop, she immediately became interested. Li Man, look, your martial arts school has a really unique way of welcoming people. Someone actually jumped off a building. It's a real shame that such a handsome young man is going down this path. Li Man remained calm. Second princess, don't worry, just wait and see. The words had barely left his mouth when Chen on the rooftop took a step forward, soaring into the air. No, the middle-aged security guard yelled, rushing over, but it was too late. A few seconds later, Chen crashed heavily to the ground. A few drops of blood splattered even at Ying's feet. Ying took a step back in disgust. This is disgusting, it's definitely beyond saving. A number of people gathered around, seemingly waiting for something. The next second, Chen, who was on the verge of death, suddenly unleashed an astonishing surge of life force. To everyone's astonishment, his shattered bones miraculously reset themselves, and his flesh and blood visibly recovered. The life force surged dramatically. In just 3 seconds, the person who had been on the verge of death was completely restored. Chen suddenly leaped to his feet, standing energetically before the crowd. Great! What a wonderful performance! Laughter erupted from all around. In fact, he comes from Earth in 2035. At that time, a virtual game called Multiverse had not yet been released, but it swept the globe. Players can access the world with their consciousness and experience a 100% realistic world. A year before the official release, Chen returned home to find a Multiverse helmet inexplicably on his desk. The moment he put it on, he entered the myriad realms, but could never return. Strangely, while others descend into this world as chosen ones, he directly possessed another Chen. The same name, the same appearance, even the same abilities. Now, half a year later, the original owner's soul is still merging with him. He gradually confirmed the abilities they shared. The so-called life resurrection talent was indeed true immortality. On Earth, where there are no supernatural powers, he carefully hid this secret, fearing that he would be captured and studied. In this world, Chen's abilities were revealed from a young age, leading to his recognition as possessing top-tier talent. Yet, he lacked any aptitude for cultivation whatsoever. Ying stood in the crowd, her gaze fixed on Chen. In just a few seconds, she could restore a near-death body to its original state. Even ordinary people would need a celestial-level treasure to achieve this level. But most martial artists would never even see such a treasure in their entire lives. Seeing her puzzled expression, Li Man explained, Chen is very famous at Shueiyun Martial Arts Academy. With his looks alone, he's widely considered the most handsome guy in the academy. The martial arts school speculates that his awakened talent is life regeneration, which explains his astonishing vitality. Unfortunately, after 2.5 years at the martial arts school, he has made no progress in terms of qi and blood, external strength, or spiritual martial arts, and is still just an ordinary person. About 6 months ago, his personality became much more cheerful, but he still had a habit of jumping off buildings every now and then. Ying felt that this person was indeed a bit strange. Just then, the crowd suddenly stirred. Look, Goddess by Mushua is here. She's definitely here to see Chen again. Ying followed everyone's gaze. She saw a tall, slender girl walking slowly towards her. She was stunningly beautiful and had a cool, aloof demeanor. By Mushiwa, if Chen Shun is the most handsome guy at Shueiyun Martial Arts Academy, then she is the undisputed #1 goddess. Not only is she outstanding in appearance, but her martial arts talent is also astonishing. Yizing sensed it and discovered that Bai Mushiwa had actually entered the third stage of martial arts, the manifestation realm, just like herself, and her foundation was extremely profound. Bai Mushiwa walked straight up to Chen. Chen greeted her with a smile. "You're here so early today?" Bai Mushiwa did not answer, but simply raised her hand and released a wisp of spiritual energy to clean the bloodstains from his clothes. "I'm leaving. I brought you breakfast." With that, she took Chen's hand and headed towards the training room. Upon seeing this, a chorus of groans erupted around them. Why is the goddess holding Chen's hand again? In the crowd, a young man stared intently at the departing figures of the two, his eyes filled with gloom. Yizing noticed this, and a slight smile appeared on her lips. Just then, a boy walked up to her. "Hey, beautiful, can I have your contact information?" Yizing replied coldly, "Get lost." A powerful aura instantly spread, causing the boy's expression to change, and he quickly retreated. Only then did those around notice that this unfamiliar, beautiful woman's strength was no less than Bai Mushiwa's. Soon, a richly dressed young man came out. "Miss, would you like to get acquainted? I am Wang Tingfei, the eldest son of the Wang family patriarch in Tianlin City." He extended his hand, considering himself a very gentlemanly man. But Yizing recognized him. He was the same guy who had shown hostility towards Chen earlier. "Get out of the way, you're blocking my way." The moment he finished speaking, an invisible force erupted. Wang Tengfei's expression changed drastically, and he staggered back more than 10 steps before barely managing to regain his footing. He gritted his teeth. As the eldest son of the Wang family, this was the first time he had been so looked down upon. Sai, the eldest son of the Wang family, has run into a wall again. Last time, in his attempt to get close to Bai Mushiwa, he ended up being slapped and hospitalized for more than 10 days. Who told him to fall for Bai Mushiwa? The first heir of the prestigious Wang family joined the Shueiyun Martial Arts Academy specifically to pursue her. Amidst the murmurs of the crowd, Yizing casually pushed aside Wang Tengfei, who was blocking her way, and led Li Man into the teaching building. She wasn't a member of the Shueiyun Martial Arts School. She was just new to Tianlin City and was following Li Man around to familiarize herself with the surroundings. Wang Tengfei stared intently at her departing figure. "Go investigate her background." His henchman quickly left. Wang Tengfei glanced down at his slightly trembling arm. So he's actually a spiritual martial artist. At this moment, Chen Shun and Bai Mushiwa were sitting in the last row by the window in training room #1. Those who could enter this room were all the most outstanding students of Shueiyun Martial Arts Academy. Logically speaking, Chen Shun, who had no talent for cultivation, had no right to stay. However, a few years ago, his ability to revive life made him a target for various martial arts schools. Ultimately, the owner of Shueiyun Martial Arts Academy spent a considerable sum to sign a contract with him. No one expected that subsequent tests would reveal he had absolutely no talent for cultivation. The contract could not be terminated, and the martial arts school not only couldn't get rid of him, but also had to provide him with resources every month, which made many people secretly laugh at him. As the trainees entered the training room one after another, the boys looked at Chen Shun with hostility. Chen Shun gazed out the window and sighed softly. He turned his head and looked at Bai Mushiwa, who was elegantly drinking milk beside him, and said pitifully, "Mushiwa, what should I do? Someone as handsome as me can't possibly become a gigolo, can I?" Bai Mushiwa put down the milk, her gaze instantly turning cold. "If you dare go, I'll chop off your bird. It'll grow back anyway." Chen Shin shuddered, instinctively squeezing his legs together. Seeing his reaction, the coldness in Bai Mushiwa's eyes gradually faded. "Don't worry. Even if you remain an ordinary person your whole life, I will still protect you." She gently patted Chen Chen's hand, her voice unusually tender. Chen Chun was deeply moved. He grasped her slender, fair hand and smiled like a child. "I'll remember those words. From now on, you have to protect me for the rest of your life." Chen Chen sighed. Although Bai Mushiwa kept saying she would protect him, he wanted to control the power himself. Even with his immortal regenerative abilities, he was still just an ordinary person, and this sense of powerlessness was hard for him to accept. Bai Mushiwa peeled an egg for him and said, "Chenair, I always advised you not to be so withdrawn, but you've changed so much in the last 6 months. Why do you jump off buildings every day? Aren't you ashamed if others see you?" Chen Shen took the egg and ate it in one bite. "I can't help it. I have such great talent, but I just can't cultivate. All I can do every day is jump off buildings to vent my feelings." Upon hearing this, Bai Muxue fell silent. Over the past 2 years, she had tried various methods to help Chen embark on the path of martial arts. Spiritual liquids, precious medicines, and even rare spiritual medicines that can improve one's aptitude were all used on him, as if they were free. No matter how many resources were invested, Chen remained unchanged. She handed him the steamed bun she was holding. "Let's eat first." After school at noon, the two had lunch together. Chen knew that the food Bai Muxue brought was very expensive, something that ordinary martial artists couldn't buy even if they had money. However, these medicinal herbs and ingredients that could improve one's aptitude had no effect on him whatsoever. In the martial arts school, people like Chen who were unable to cultivate could only pass the time on their own. As he left the school, Bai Muxue watched his retreating figure, a hint of disappointment flashing in her eyes. Chen walked home, his heart heavy. Was he destined to be just an ordinary person for the rest of his life? Just then, a violent surge of spiritual energy suddenly erupted from ahead. A battle was taking place. Chen frowned and strode forward, but the more he walked, the more uneasy he felt. The direction of the battle seemed to be his own residential area. Holy crap, are they going to demolish my house? 6 months ago, he sold 8 kidneys to buy this house outright. He's only lived here for less than a year. Chen panicked, but when he arrived nearby, he could only stand at a distance, anxiously waiting. He was just an ordinary person and had no way of intervening in a battle between martial artists. At this moment, in the center of the battlefield, Yizing, pale-faced, stared intently at the middle-aged man opposite her. He had curved horns and black lips, clearly not human. Not far away, Li Man lay on the ground, covered in blood, already lifeless. Yizing's eyes were icy cold. "Dare to ambush me. She deserves to die." She had been evenly matched with the middle-aged man, but Li Man suddenly stabbed her in the back, causing her serious injuries. Now she was at a disadvantage. The middle-aged man remained calm and spoke softly. "Second princess, we are also acting under orders. It's because your talent is too high. Whether it's Qi and blood martial arts or spiritual martial arts, you've stepped into the third realm, posing too great a threat to the eldest princess." Yizing clenched her fists, her face grim. "So, the 5 divine poisons in my body were also inflicted by her." The middle-aged man simply smiled in tacit agreement. The middle-aged man sighed softly and raised his palm. In his palm, a strange ball of crimson energy slowly emerged. The moment the blood clot appeared, Yizing's expression changed drastically, and her body began to tremble uncontrollably. The 5 divine poisons had been activated. Her eyes were bloodshot as she stared intently at the other person. "From this day forward, I sever all ties with her." As soon as she finished speaking, Yizing's hands moved swiftly, forming hand seals. In an instant, a violent mental force swept across the surroundings, and the invisible mental fluctuations were even tinged with a light purple light. The middle-aged man hurriedly conjured a mental shield, but when the light purple mental energy swept over, the shield was instantly covered in cracks. The middle-aged man gave a wry smile. He hadn't expected that the second princess's spiritual power quality had actually reached the celestial level. The next second, the shield shattered. Countless streams of mental energy surged into his body. Yizing's spiritual talent not only possesses extremely strong penetrating power, but also a terrifying charm. The middle-aged man's consciousness instantly fell into an illusion. With a thought, Yizing unleashed a mental throwing knife, piercing the middle-aged man's forehead at supersonic speed. The middle-aged man slowly collapsed. Before he died, he looked at Yizing, and a complex yet gentle smile flashed in his eyes. After dealing with the middle-aged man, Yizing quickly fled, while simultaneously taking several precious pills to suppress her injuries. She knew very well that her elder sister had sent more than one person to kill her. Some were being held back by her guards, while others were still on their way. What's more troublesome is that the 5 divine poisons within her body have fully erupted. The 5 divine poisons are bone-corroding poison, body-burning poison, soul-devouring poison, bloodthirsty poison, and lust poison. She had already survived the first few poisons. Now, only the lust poison and the soul-devouring poison remained. And the one flaring up now was the most troublesome lust poison. If the poison takes effect and cannot be neutralized in time, she will be consumed by the lust within her body and eventually die. That mental attack just now had completely depleted her mental energy, and she was now close to her limit. Just as she was struggling to escape, a familiar figure came into view. It was Chen, who was preparing to go home. A flicker of hesitation crossed Yi Ziying's mind. Chen Shun possessed vitality far exceeding that of ordinary people. Perhaps only he could help her overcome this calamity. The next second, she appeared in front of Chen Shun. Before Chen Shun could react, Yi Ziying grabbed his arm. Come with me. As soon as she finished speaking, she led Chen Shun quickly through the streets and soon arrived at a nearby hotel. The receptionist blushed slightly as she looked at the two anxious people and silently handed them the room key. The moment the door closed, Chen Shun finally realized something was wrong. Yi Ziying's eyes were red, her consciousness already eroded by the poison. Wait, what happened? However, Yi Ziying didn't answer at all. Looking at Chen Shun, who was completely powerless to resist, she thought, holy crap, this is robbing a man. Unfortunately, with his lack of cultivation, he was unable to break free. As the poison continued to erupt, the succubus bloodline within Yi Ziying became fully apparent. A long, purplish-black horn slowly emerged, followed by a pair of purple wings and a heart-shaped tail. Mysterious patterns were faintly visible on its snow-white skin. Upon seeing this, Chen Shen's eyes widened instantly. So you're a succubus. But the next moment, he completely lost his chance to resist. 3 days later, the room finally returned to calm. Chen Shen lay on the bed, looking much thinner, as if all his energy had been drained. But the next second, his immortal body activated on its own. His depleted blood and energy rapidly recovered, and his emaciated body visibly regained its fullness. In just a few seconds, everything returned to normal. Yi Ziying nestled quietly in his arms and fell into a deep sleep. A mysterious succubus mark slowly appeared on her lower abdomen. Those were the marks left on the succubus race after their transformation. At this moment, her brows and eyes were relaxed, and a faint smile played on her lips. And Chen Shun had truly completed his transformation from boy to man. It wasn't until evening that Chen Shun slowly opened his eyes. Looking at the unfamiliar ceiling and the beautiful woman in his arms who was both familiar and unfamiliar, he finally realized that everything that had happened in the past 3 days was not a dream. Just then, a cold, mechanical voice suddenly rang in his mind. Host detected as a true man. Goddess catalog system officially activated. Upon hearing the voice in his mind, Chen Shun was initially stunned, thinking he had misheard. So, the system only awakens when one becomes a real man. Chen Shun glanced at the red marks on the bed and realized that he really had to thank Yi Ziying this time. In this way, he would be able to take responsibility for Yi Ziying. At the same time, he also thought of Bai Muxue. Previously, he lacked martial arts aptitude, so he dared not take their relationship to the next level. But now it's different. Bai Muxue is so good to him, he absolutely cannot let anyone else take her away. Chen Shun began to examine the system. This system is called the Goddess Catalog System. The host will earn points by collecting images of goddesses with an appearance score exceeding 90. Points can be used for lucky draws, improving cultivation levels, and enhancing martial arts proficiency. The higher the goddess's current or future achievements, the more points she will earn. Rewards are divided into 3 tiers: purple, red, and gold. A red reward is guaranteed at least once every 50 pulls, and a gold reward is guaranteed at least once every 100 pulls. Detected that the host has acquired the second princess of the succubus clan, Yi Ziying. 124 points awarded. Soon, Yi Ziying's information appeared before Chen Shen's eyes. Name: Yi Ziying. Age: 18. Appearance: 94. Realm: early stage of spiritual 3rd rank. Early stage of Qi and blood martial, Dao manifestation realm. Identity: second princess of the succubus clan. Talents: mental charm, phantom, affection level, 80. After reading it, Chen Shun gained a new understanding of Yi Ziying. Her mental charm could penetrate most mental defenses, dragging enemies into a bewitching illusion. Phantom can use her shadow to travel short distances. But what surprised Chen Shun the most was that she was actually a dual-talented martial artist. As for the 80 points of affection, he was even more stunned. This was a level that only intimate couples would reach. Chen Shun suppressed his surprise and looked at the 124 points. System all in. 124 consecutive draws. Initiating 124 consecutive draws. Congratulations, host. You have gained plus 10 HP. Congratulations, host. You have gained plus 1 charm. Congratulations, host. You have gained 10 points of health. A series of notifications kept ringing out, leaving Chen Shun dazzled. Just then, a golden reward suddenly appeared. Congratulations, host. You have obtained a golden reward. One of the 5 strongest physiques. The comprehension battle body. Chen Shun was completely stunned. In his world, martial artists possessed not only talent but also special physiques. Among countless physiques, 5 supreme physiques ranked first: Cold Night Divine Body, Blazing Sun Divine Body, Immortal Spirit Sword Body, Enlightened Battle Overlord Body, Heavenly Azure Overlord Body. Now, he has actually drawn the Enlightened Battle Overlord Body. The lottery continues. Congratulations, host, on receiving a red reward. Volume 1 of the Moonshine Level Superior Grade External Martial Arts Manual, The Forbidden Scroll of Heaven and Earth. Congratulations, host, on receiving a red reward. The first part of the Moon Level Top Grade Chi and Blood Cultivation Technique, Heavenly Star True Scripture. Congratulations, host, for obtaining the Earthly Realm Grade High Rank Chi and Blood Martial Skill, Heavenly Imperial Palm. Congratulations, host, for obtaining the Celestial Realm Grade Mid-Rank Weapon, Fire-Tipped Spear. Congratulations, host, for obtaining the Earthly Throne Level Superior Grade Chi and Blood Martial Skill, Thunderbolt Spear Technique. Congratulations, host, for obtaining the Earthly Throne Level Supreme Grade Horizontal Training Martial Skill, Mad Demon Fist. Congratulations, host, you have obtained a D-Level External Cultivation Elixir, Jade Dew Ointment. Looking at these rewards, Chun Chun felt completely at ease. With the enlightenment of the Overlord Body, the Celestial Star Scripture, the Forbidden Scroll of Heaven and Earth, the Fire-Tipped Spear, and various martial arts techniques and precious medicines, he was well enough to officially embark on the path of martial arts. Without hesitation, Chun Chun immediately gave the order. Fuse with the battle body of enlightenment. Fuse with blood chi. Fuse with charisma. The next instant, his snow-white hair moved without wind, and an ancient, domineering aura full of Taoist charm erupted from his body. Behind him, a blurry, ancient phantom vaguely appeared. All the items in the room were swept into the air, and even the walls were cracked. Outside the hotel, the sky suddenly became overcast, and the entire city of Tianlin became incredibly oppressive, as if some terrifying being was watching over the place. Yizing, who was fast asleep, was suddenly awakened, her first thought being that pursuers had arrived. But when she looked closely, she realized that the aura was actually coming from Chun Chun. At this moment, Chun Chun's internal energy surged from nothing to a staggering 320 points. He not only officially entered the first realm of Qi and blood martial arts, but also leaped to become a level 5 martial artist. Beside the bed, Yizing stared blankly at Chun Chun, wondering how he could have gone from an ordinary person to a level 5 martial artist in such a short time. Especially the illusory giant shadow that appeared behind him. Just one glance at it made her feel as insignificant as dust. A moment later, the strange phenomenon slowly dissipated, and the room returned to calm. Chun Chun clenched his fists, feeling the surging power within him, and couldn't help but sigh. Is this the power of a martial artist? If a mere level 5 martial artist is this powerful, how terrifying must Bai Muxua, who has already entered the manifestation realm, be? Only then did he notice that Yizing had already woken up. Looking at the alluring succubus girl before him, Chun Chun subconsciously swallowed. Meanwhile, on the system panel, Yizing's favorability rating towards him remained at 75. You're awake. Are you alright? Chun Chun tentatively spoke, casually touching the antennae on her head. The next second, Yizing immediately slapped his hand away and glared at him. Chun Chun smiled awkwardly, then realized that his actions seemed somewhat rash. After a moment of silence, he couldn't help but ask, so what kind of relationship do we have now? Yizing sat on the bed with her legs drawn up, her expression complicated. Among the succubi, most only truly accept the first person who accepts them in their lifetime. Now, the succubus markings unique to Chun Chun have appeared on her lower abdomen. Hearing Chun Chun's question, Yizing looked up, her gaze slightly cold. What? You want to shirk responsibility after leaving your mark? Chun Chun quickly waved his hand. No, I'll definitely take responsibility. Seeing his flustered state, Yizing's lips curled into a slight smile. If you want to take responsibility, you'll be facing considerable trouble later. Then, she revealed her identity to Chun Chun. It turns out that she is the second princess of the succubus clan, and her eldest sister planted the 5 divine poison on her several years ago in order to compete for the position of clan leader. The flare-up a few days ago was from lust-induced poisoning. Chun Chun immediately recalled her near out-of-control state at the time and couldn't help but widen his eyes. So, you used me to save your life back then? Yizing nodded and explained softly. I know you have a strong life force, which is why I thought you could pull through. After hearing the explanation, Chen Chun was still somewhat annoyed. You almost got me killed. Seeing this, Yizing moved closer, a sly glint in her eyes. What's wrong? Is my little man angry? Chen Chen coughed lightly and quickly looked away. Never mind. I haven't heard from him for 3 days. Mu Shui must be worried sick. As he spoke, he picked up the cracked phone from the ground and painfully turned it on. Yizing gave a soft snort, her tone tinged with bitterness. I'm still by your side, and you're already thinking about other women? Sure enough, men always like to have their cake and eat it too. Chen Chen coughed lightly. You're my woman now, and I won't let Mu Shui down either. After all, she's my official girlfriend. Yizing rolled her eyes. Mu Shui and I are both spirit manifestation realm martial artists, while you're only at the martial artist realm. Where do you get the confidence to have two of us genius beauties at the same time? Chen Chen immediately retorted. That was before. Now that I've awakened a special physique, catching up to you is only a matter of time. Yizing looked at him, clearly not believing him. Seeing this, Chen Chen asked directly, do you know what kind of physique I've awakened? Yizing became interested. Could it be one of the 5 top-tier physiques? Chen Chen's eyes lit up. You really guessed right. You're worthy of being my woman. Seeing that she was still doubtful, Chen Chen stopped talking and directly activated his battle body. In an instant, an ancient and domineering aura erupted from his body, carrying a strong primordial pressure that swept across the entire room. Yizing's expression changed, her eyes filled with shock. It really is the comprehension of the battle body. She never expected that the man she casually grabbed to detoxify her would awaken one of the 5 supreme physical constitutions. Chen Chen smiled with satisfaction, then dialed Mu Shui's number. The phone rang only once before Mu Shui answered. Where are you right now? Her voice was icy cold. For the past 3 days, she had seen Chen Chen's house reduced to ruins, and she couldn't get through on the phone. She was nearly driven mad with anxiety. Chen Chen immediately felt a little guilty. I've been cultivating these past few days. Mu Shui instantly became angry. Cultivation? How do you cultivate, Chen Chen? You're still lying to me. Yizing, standing next to him, covered her mouth and chuckled. Chen Chen glared at her, then quickly explained. Mu Shui, I really can cultivate now. I've awakened a special physique and have already embarked on the path of martial arts. Wait for me at home. I'll come to you right away. After saying that, he hung up the phone immediately, afraid that Mu Shui would continue to get angry. Seeing his expression, Yizing finally couldn't help but laugh out loud. Chen Chen said irritably, What are you laughing at? I'm leaving. But as he was about to put on his clothes, he froze. 3 days ago, Yizing had already torn his clothes to shreds. We can't just go out like this, can we? Yizing smiled even more broadly. Wait here, I'll go buy you some clothes. As soon as she got out of bed, her legs felt weak, and she could barely walk. Chen Chen could only stay in the room and wait for her to return. Meanwhile, inside the Bai family villa, Mu Shui stared at her phone, remaining silent for a long time. Butler Tu Bo stood to the side. Miss, was that Chen Chen calling? Mu Shui nodded. He said he can cultivate now. Butler Tu Bo was slightly taken aback. Over the years, Mu Shui has used up a vast amount of rare and precious materials for Chen Chen. Those resources are enough to power an ordinary person to the 100 Apertures realm. Hearing that Chen Chen could finally cultivate, he breathed a sigh of relief. Miss, was it really worth all the sacrifices you made for him? Mu Shui gazed out the window, her expression gentle. If it weren't for Chen Chen back then, I might be dead already. So, whatever you do for him is worthwhile. Tu Bo sighed and didn't try to persuade him any further. In his view, Mu Shui was the pride of the Fox clan's Qingqiu lineage and should have had a brighter future, but she stayed in this small town for 4 years for Chen Chen. 13 years ago, a transport aircraft of the Qingqiu Fox clan was attacked by a mysterious dark force while passing through the outskirts of Tianlin City. The fighter jet exploded on the spot, and the accompanying experts suffered heavy casualties. Although Mu Shui, who was only 5 years old, was protected by her elders, she was still seriously injured and fell, and was forced to transform into her original form as a white fox. When she woke up, she found herself rescued by a little boy. That boy was Chen Chen. At that time, Chen Chen had grown up alone in the mountains, living with wild animals. He used his treasured elixirs to heal Mu Shui's wounds, and went out every day to pick fruit to care for her. Because her wounds were being corroded by dark forces, Mu Shui was unable to regain her human form for a long time. The human and the fox lived together in the mountains for half a month, relying on each other for survival. Later, the Qingqiu Fox clan sent people to search for their missing member. But just 2 days before the clansmen arrived, Chun Chin suddenly disappeared. Even after Bai Muxue was brought back to the clan, she never saw him again. 9 years later, 14-year-old Bai Muxue arrived in Tianlin City and finally found Chun Chun at the Shueyun martial arts school. But by then, Chun Chun had long forgotten the little white fox he had once saved. Bai Muxue also didn't reveal her identity, but silently stayed by his side until now. On the way, Yizing followed beside Chun Chun and asked softly, "Are you really determined to be my man? My older sister dared to kill even her own sister. If you stay with me, you will be in danger at any time." Chun Chun replied without hesitation, "Since we've already consummated our marriage, of course I'll take responsibility. If she wants to come, then let her come." Hearing this, Yizing's lips curled up slightly. "Here's a reward for you." After saying that, she stood on tiptoe and kissed Chun Chun on the cheek. Chun Chun paused for a moment, then asked, "Why have you been following me?" "I'm going to Mushue's house," Yizing said with a smile. "Of course, I'm going to meet my future sister." Chun Chun rolled his eyes helplessly. Having acquired the goddess catalog system, he needed to interact with more goddess-level figures to become stronger. And Bai Muxue, of course, was someone he wouldn't let go of. As for danger, his greatest trump card has always been his immortality. The underground black market once coveted his abilities and even tried to capture him to use as an organ donor. In a moment of crisis, his body disintegrated on its own, and his consciousness transferred to one of his removed kidneys, thus completing his rebirth and successfully escaping. Unfortunately, he could no longer actively use this ability. If he could one day fully master it, he would be able to scatter his body parts to different places and regenerate at any time. Before long, the two arrived at a villa. Bai Muxue was already waiting at the door, her face full of joy. But when she saw Yizing next to Chun Chun, her smile vanished instantly. Bai Muxue could tell at a glance that Yizing was not human, but a succubus. "What are you doing following Chun Chun, you vixen?" Yizing raised an eyebrow and looked at her with a smile. "My man is here. Of course I have to come along." Chun Chun's heart tightened instantly. The next second, Bai Mushue's murderous gaze fell on him. "Muxue, let me explain. It's not what you think." Chun Chun quickly recounted what had happened in the past few days. After listening, the anger in Bai Mushue's eyes slowly subsided, but when she looked at Yizing, she was still full of hostility. In her view, if Chun Chun's life hadn't been revived, he would have died at Yizing's hands long ago. At this moment, Tu Bo suddenly stared at Chun Chun, his expression one of shock. "You just said that you awakened the battle body?" Chun Chun nodded, too lazy to explain further, and directly released the aura of his battle body. An ancient and domineering pressure instantly spread out. After carefully sensing it, Tu Bo's expression completely changed. This aura was exactly the same as the battle-enlightened overlord body recorded in the clan. Still somewhat incredulous, he took out a martial arts manual and handed it to Chun Chun. "Learn this martial arts manual." Chun Chun took it and saw that it was a mid-grade Xuanjin level martial skill called Tongbei Fist. He only glanced at it, closed his eyes and pondered for 3 seconds. Then his internal energy surged, and he immediately used it. With a single punch, 8 whistling sounds echoed through the air. Tu Bo's eyes widened in disbelief. This was a direct attainment of the transcendent realm. Martial arts proficiency is divided into 5 stages: beginner, intermediate, subtle, master, and divine. Chun Chun only read it once and mastered the Tongbei Fist to the mastery stage. Tu Bo finally believed it completely. The first-order physique was indeed heaven-defying. Bai Muxue was also stunned. "You're really a genius now?" Chun Chun raised his head and said with a smile, "Muxue, from now on I will protect you." Bai Muxue felt a warmth in her heart, but still gave a soft hum. "You're only a level 5 martial artist. You're far from being able to protect me." Tu Bo's attitude towards Chun Chun softened considerably. If their young lady's future man truly possesses the battle-conquering physique, then the Qingqiu lineage will absolutely not object. After all, the 5 first-order physiques are extremely rare, and such individuals are destined to become great figures in the future. "Miss, let's go inside and talk." The group walked into the house. Bai Muxue looked at Yizing, who was following Chun Chun, and was still unhappy. She was the one who met Chun Chun first, yet this succubus got the upper hand. Yizing smiled and said, "Why are you looking at me like that, little sister?" "Chun Chun's awakening of the battle body might even have been thanks to me," Bai Muxue said, her chest heaving with anger. "Humph, even without you, Chun Er and I will still awaken together." Tu Bo, who was walking in front, felt helpless when he heard this. When did his aloof young lady start saying such things? Yizing's smile deepened. "It's no use saying all this now. You can only be my younger sister. Besides, I'm probably older than you, right? Bai Mushua asked coldly. When is your birthday? February 5th. Qinshin nodded. Yizing is indeed a few months older than Bai Mushua, because Bai Mushua's birthday is May 6th. Bai Mushua was so angry she wanted to bite her teeth, but she couldn't refute it. Seeing the tense atmosphere, Qinshin quickly tried to smooth things over. We're all family now, so it's best to get along harmoniously. Upon hearing the words family, Bai Mushua blushed, but immediately glared at him. Shut up. Beat me first. Qinshin decisively shut up. He had no choice. Right now, he was the weakest among them. Looking at Bai Mushua's flushed cheeks, Yizing giggled and asked, Is my little sister shy? Bai Mushua gave her a cold glance. You're more like a fox spirit than I am, a member of the fox clan. Qinshin, sitting in the middle, could only awkwardly touch his nose. Upon entering the living room, Yizing sat to his left and Bai Mushua to his right, the two women subtly competing with each other, neither willing to concede. At this moment, Tu Bo looked at Qinshin. Qinshin, what are your plans for your future path in martial arts? Qinshin said earnestly. I want to cultivate both the external martial arts and the internal energy martial arts simultaneously. Tu Bo nodded. The Wujian Ba Ti, Wujian Baki, is highly compatible, allowing one to follow all three martial arts paths. However, regardless of the types of martial arts one cultivates, there must be a primary and secondary focus. You possess the talent for life regeneration. When fighting against opponents of the same realm, you can recover quickly. You injure your opponent, but their injuries will continuously accumulate. With this shift in power, you hold an absolute advantage. Upon hearing this, Qinshin's eyes lit up. Others risk their lives by trading injuries, but he trades injuries and yet remains almost invincible. If he were to cultivate his external martial arts to the extreme and combine it with his immortality, who among his peers could stop him? With this in mind, Qinshin immediately formed a clear plan. He would use Qi and blood martial arts as the primary method, and external martial arts as his core trump card. As for his immortality, that was his greatest secret. Thank you for your guidance, Uncle Tuesday. Qinshin rose and bowed respectfully. Tu Bo nodded in satisfaction and handed him a cultivation manual. This is a Dichu level external martial arts technique from the Qingxiu lineage. You can start practicing it. As soon as she finished speaking, Bai Mushua immediately objected. Why only the earthly realm level? Qinshin had just entered the martial arts world. Wouldn't it be better to use a heavenly realm level technique? Tu Bo was immediately at a loss for words, neither laughing nor crying. Miss, only members of the Fox clan can cultivate techniques above the earthly realm level. It's a clan rule. Bai Mushua snorted softly, but there was nothing she could do. Seeing this, Qinshin quickly spoke up. Actually, I already have a cultivation technique. Bai Mushua was taken aback. Yizing gave it to you. She frowned slightly. Qinshin shook his head. No, it was the technique that automatically appeared in my mind after I awakened the battle body. Upon hearing this, all three were stunned. This situation usually only occurs among the descendants of top-tier experts. When the bloodline becomes strong enough, the techniques and martial arts skills will be imprinted in the bloodline, forming a bloodline inheritance. Yizing and Bai Mushua nodded thoughtfully. Bai Mushua's eyes immediately lit up with surprise. So, you're probably not an orphan, but rather the descendant of some super powerful being? Qinshin's lips twitched slightly. He couldn't very well tell them that this was a system reward, could he? Since they were willing to let their imaginations run wild, he might as well let them. Tu Bo smiled and said, having a high-level cultivation technique as a foundation will greatly help your future cultivation. Bai Mushua immediately chimed in. If you need any cultivation resources in the future, just tell me. After saying that, she gave Yizing a smug look. Yizing snorted. She's barely able to take care of herself right now, so she really doesn't have any resources to offer. Uncle Tu sighed helplessly as he watched this scene. Bai Mushua, who is usually aloof, would give Qinshin all the good things she could ever want whenever she met him. Bai Mushua suddenly remembered that Qinshin's house had been destroyed, and now you have nowhere to live. What are you going to do next? You're not thinking of selling your kidney again, are you? I won't allow it. Yizing immediately chimed in. I won't allow it either. Qinshin suddenly felt a little guilty. He had indeed had that thought just now. He looked at Yizing. What about me? Stay here. Bai Mushua immediately realized what he meant. So you demolished Qinshin's house? Yizing snorted. I was almost dead at the time. How could I care about the house? At worst, he can live with me from now on. Anyway, we're in a legitimate position now. Bai Mushua was immediately furious. No way. Chen will live with me from now on. If he lives with you, will he have time to cultivate? Yi Ziying smiled. It's fine if I stay here too. You'll be my sister from now on anyway. Bai Mushua looked at Tu Bo pondered for a moment, and since she and Chen already had that kind of relationship, then let her stay. Bai Mushua then did not refuse. Afterwards, she led the two to the guest rooms on the third floor. Chen's room was arranged next to Bai Mushua's, while Yi Ziying lived on the other side of Chen's room, sandwiching him in the middle. After entering the room, Chen did not come out again. He had just embarked on the path of martial arts and wanted to test his strength. The room was fully equipped, and there was even a dedicated training room. Chen stood in front of the punching power testing machine, circulated his chi and blood, and threw a punch. The numbers jumped wildly, finally stopping at 6,320 Jin. This was without him using any martial arts techniques or activating the power of his battle body. A level 5 martial artist, yet already comparable to an level 8 martial artist. Chen's eyes lit up. Then, he activated the Tongbei fist and simultaneously unleashed the battle body. He threw another punch. 8 whooshing sounds rang out, and the numbers on the test machine finally stopped at 10,653 Jin. Even a martial artist in the early stage of the Blood Bell realm might not be able to unleash this power easily. Chen's anticipation grew even stronger. If he continued to cultivate the external martial arts, his strength would surely increase dramatically. He took out the Earth-level external martial arts treasure, Jade Dew Ointment, which was a reward from the system. According to the system's description, as long as the Jade Dew cream is applied evenly to the skin, it can temper the physical body and improve one's physical cultivation level. The training method of external martial arts focuses on the physical body, starting from the copper skin realm and gradually tempering the skin, flesh, tendons, and bones. Once each stage is completed, demonic runes can be inscribed, greatly enhancing defense and strength. Chen took off his clothes, melted the Jade Dew Ointment with his blood and chi, and then applied it to his body. The moment the ointment touched his skin, his face contorted in pain. Damn, that really hurt. The potent medicine burned his skin like a raging fire. Even if he were immortal and his injuries could heal instantly, the pain wouldn't lessen at all. He had a system, the battle body, and immortality. If he didn't work hard even with this much effort, he wouldn't deserve these opportunities at all. With that thought in mind, he endured the excruciating pain and continued applying the Jade Dew Ointment. But it wasn't long before he found himself overwhelmed. He had to endure the pain of absorbing the medicine while simultaneously applying it, which was simply too difficult. So Chen put on a pair of pants, walked to Yi Ziying's door, and knocked. "It's me," came Yi Ziying's languid voice from inside. "Come in." Chen pushed open the door and saw Yi Ziying cultivating. He nodded inwardly. Truly a genius. She cultivates whenever she has time. Inside the training room, Yi Ziying was sitting cross-legged. As soon as Chen entered, he saw that she was only wearing a thin red gauze dress, her graceful figure appearing and disappearing in the shadows. Seeing Chen enter wearing only a pair of pants, Yi Ziying's lips curled into a playful smile. "Little man, you didn't come here for what I'm thinking, did you?" As the light purple spiritual energy slowly spread, Chen felt his consciousness becoming somewhat unsteady. This is precisely Yi Ziying's talent. Even the mental fluctuations she releases unintentionally have an amazing, alluring effect. Sensing that Chen was about to collapse, Yi Ziying promptly withdrew her spiritual energy. Chen glared at her a few times. He couldn't beat her now, but if he surpassed her in strength later, he would definitely get his revenge for today. Chen took out the Jade Dew Ointment and handed it to me, saying, "I need to use it to begin my journey into the world of external martial arts." Yi Ziying couldn't help but show a surprised expression when she saw the ointment. "This is a top-grade body-strengthening elixir, a gift from Sister Mu Shui." Chen smiled mysteriously. "It's a secret." He then took off his clothes and sat cross-legged in front of her. Yi Ziying took the Jade Dew Ointment and began to apply it evenly to him. Chen focused all his energy on absorbing the medicinal power and resisting the pain. The intense medicinal power erupted rapidly, turning his whole body red, and his skin constantly emitted heat. Yi Ziying was secretly alarmed. Normal people, before even embarking on the path of external martial arts, would at most dare to use mortal-level spiritual medicines, but Chen was directly using a top-tier treasure medicine. If he was not careful, his physical body would completely collapse. In fact, the moment the Jade Dew Ointment touched his skin, Chen flesh began to fester. Had he not possessed an immortal body, he would have long since turned into a pool of flesh and blood. Even so, the tearing pain remained unbearable. Intense pain relentlessly assaulted his nerves, especially when the ointment was applied to his head. It felt as if it had penetrated deep into his bones. Chun Chen's face flushed red, and veins bulged all over his body, but he clenched his teeth and did not utter a single cry of pain. Just as Yizing finished applying the makeup to her upper body, Chun Chen's aura suddenly exploded. His long hair moved without wind, a heavy aura swept around, and his skin shimmered with a faint bronze luster. He had finally stepped into the first realm of body tempering, the Copper Skin realm. The Copper Skin realm is divided into 4 levels: Copper Skin, Iron Skin, Gold Skin, and Jade Skin. Legend has it that there is a 5th level, Demon Skin, which requires astonishing foundation, talent, and willpower to reach. Yizing felt that Chun Chen might truly have a chance. Continue, Chun Chen shouted in a low voice with his eyes closed. Yizing then came to her senses, looked at the remaining untreated areas. Her pretty face slightly flushed, but she still suppressed her shyness and continued to apply the medicine for him. Stand up, otherwise how am I supposed to apply it for you? Hearing this, Chun Chen forced himself to stand up. As the medicine took effect again, his legs went weak and his body trembled uncontrollably, but he did not collapse. From a slight tremor to violent shaking, Chun Chen endured torment unimaginable to ordinary people. Yizing looked at the stubborn man before her, her eyes filled with shock and pride. In her knowledge, no one had ever been able to sustain themselves to this extent with the help of a top-tier medicinal elixir before even entering the realm of martial arts cultivation. And the person who created this miracle was the man she had chosen. Chapter 14 Template. Soon, Yizing finished applying the ointment to Chun Chen's lower body. At this moment, there was not a trace of sweat on his body, and his skin was unusually dry, because the sweat evaporates instantly from the skin as soon as it seeps out. As the medicinal effects continued to penetrate, layers of grime appeared on Chun Chen's body surface. These were impurities expelled from his body. Meanwhile, Yizing still had 1/3 of the jade dew ointment remaining. We're not finished yet. Do you want to continue? Chun Chen glanced at the remaining jade dew cream, gritted his teeth, and nodded emphatically. Continue. He had a vague feeling that as long as he absorbed all the remaining medicinal power, he would be able to break through to the second stage of the Copper Skin realm. Iron Skin. Ordinary Earth-level treasure medicines might not be able to achieve this, but Jade Dew Ointment is a top-tier Earth-level treasure medicine, a product of the system, indeed extraordinary. Seeing his resolute attitude, Yizing did not hesitate and carefully applied the ointment again, starting from the upper body. Although the remaining amount was not much, it was enough to cover the whole body again. More than 20 minutes later, the last bit of Jade Dew cream was completely absorbed, and another wave of intense heat surged from Chun Chen's body. His skin, which originally had a brassy sheen, now had a metallic texture like silver iron, exuding an aura of power and hardness. Chun Chen gritted his teeth and exhaled a heavy breath. With a few deep breaths, the burn marks on his body caused by the medicine quickly healed. He clenched his fist, feeling the surge of power within him. After embarking on the path of external martial arts, he directly entered the second stage, the Iron Skin realm. Now, a casual punch possesses a force of over 8,000 Jin. Compared to the previous 6,000 Jin, this represents an increase of nearly 2,000 Jin. However, the real improvement in external martial arts training is not strength, but defense. Chun Chen could clearly feel that his physical strength had now reached an extremely astonishing level. He looked up at Yizing, his eyes filled with eagerness. Yizing, punch me. Yizing was slightly taken aback, noticing the provocation in his eyes, and a smile appeared on her lips. The next second, she threw a punch without hesitation. Bang! Before Chun Chen could even react, he was sent flying backward and crashed heavily onto the strength testing machine. The numbers on the machine screen jumped wildly, finally settling at 130,000 Jin. This is only the force after being cushioned by Chun Chen's body. One can imagine how terrifying Yizing's Real punch would be. Chun Chen opened his mouth in agony and coughed up a mouthful of blood. Yizing, can't you be a little gentler? I feel like my bones are broken. Please help me up. Yizing snorted softly, but before she could even walk over, Chun Chen's injuries had already healed completely. Your life-restoring talent is too exaggerated. You recovered like this in just a few seconds. You're like an unkillable cockroach. Chun Chen smiled awkwardly. Is he still so arrogant now? Yizing blinked, her expression somewhat playful. Chun Chen quickly waved his hand. Don't get cocky anymore. You're still the boss. Although it's not fatal, it really hurts. After putting on his pants, Chen Shun had just stepped out of his room when Bai Muxue from next door came out as well. When she saw Chen Shun walk out of Yi Xing's room shirtless, her pretty face instantly turned red. Chen Er, go to hell. She left those words behind and turned to run downstairs. Chen Shin's raised hand froze in midair, and he was stunned for a moment before he reacted. He looked down at his own reflection, then glanced back at the door, and suddenly understood. Mu Shui, you're thinking the wrong thing. Yi Xing leaned against the door and couldn't help but laugh. Chen Shun, why does Mu Shui call you Chen Er? Chen Shun explained helplessly. My name has two homophones, so she's just used to calling me that. Yi Xing's eyes curved slightly. Since she calls you Chen Er, I'll call you Xiao Chen Chen from now on. Chen Chen shrugged and decisively chose to accept reality. Anyway, we can't beat anyone now, so there's no point in resisting. After taking a shower, Bai Muxue called him downstairs for a late-night snack. As soon as he arrived at the dining table, he saw Bai Muxue staring at Yi Xing warily, leaving a space between the two of them. Vixen, Bai Muxue said angrily. Yi Xing chuckled softly. Sister Muxue, aren't you insulting yourself by saying that? Bai Muxue was stunned for a moment, then fell silent and could only let out a soft hum. Chen Chen quickly explained. Mu Shui, you've really misunderstood. I was cultivating in Zi Ying's room this afternoon. As he spoke, he directly released the aura of the Iron Skin realm. Upon sensing the fluctuation of that power, Bai Muxue's eyes widened immediately. In just a few hours, Chen Shun actually broke through from a novice in the martial arts of horizontal training to the Iron Skin realm. Uncle Tu, who was serving the dishes, was also stunned. This cultivation speed is simply heaven-defying. Kid, cultivation isn't just about speed. It's more important to build a solid foundation. Uncle Tu put down his late-night snack and gave him a heartfelt reminder. No matter how tall a building is, if its foundation is unstable, it will eventually collapse. Chen Chen nodded seriously. I understand, Uncle Tuesday. After finishing his late-night snack, he returned to his room, his eyes filled with anticipation. Now that I have mastered the basics of Qi and blood martial arts and horizontal martial arts, it is time to cultivate the real techniques. Chen Chen took out the first part of the Heavenly Star scripture from the system space. Since there is a first part, there will naturally be a second and a third part. However, this single heavenly realm technique is enough to support his cultivation to the 100 apertures realm. Even the most profound knowledge is beyond his current level of understanding. After all, even the best textbooks are useless if you make an elementary school student learn university-level mathematics. Chapter 15, The Celestial Star Scripture. For martial artists to continuously break through their limits, cultivation techniques are indispensable. Without the guidance of cultivation techniques, no matter how high one's talent, one can only remain at the first level. Qi and blood also have different qualities, corresponding to the level of cultivation techniques, namely 7 levels: mortal, profound, earth, heaven, star, moon, and Sunday. The higher the quality of Qi and blood, the stronger the combat power that can be unleashed at the same cultivation level. At this time, Chen Shun had not yet formally begun cultivating any techniques, and his internal energy and blood were not even at the highest grade. Once the quality of his internal energy and blood was improved, his strength would experience another leap forward. Filled with anticipation, Chen Shun began cultivating the Heavenly Star True Scripture. With the support of his terrifying comprehension from his battle-conquering body, he successfully mastered the first part of the cultivation in just a few minutes. Feeling the strands of starlight descending from the sky and merging into his body, Chen Shun couldn't help but marvel at how incredibly powerful the effects of the battle body technique were. The core of the Celestial Star Scripture lies in comprehending the power of the stars. The deeper the comprehension, the higher the proficiency, and ultimately, only then can one cultivate the technique to the divine level, allowing one's Qi and blood to undergo a complete transformation. After a night of cultivation, Chen Chen slowly opened his eyes. Although it only took him a few minutes to grasp the basics, after a whole night of hard work, he had only managed to raise his proficiency to the subtle level. At the same time, his internal energy and blood officially entered the mortal level, and his own strength increased again. With just his internal energy and blood, his strength was close to 8,000 kilograms. Looking at the gradually brightening sky outside the window, Chen Chen got up and stretched. Today was Monday, the day the Shueyun Martial Arts Academy distributed training resources. With only 3 months left until the martial arts exam, he had to catch up with Bai Muxue and Yi Xing as soon as possible, he couldn't fall behind his two women. Although he hadn't slept all night, Chun was still full of energy, a testament to the powerful physique of a martial artist. Just then, there was a gentle knock on the door. When the door was opened, Bai Mushiwe stood outside carrying several sets of new clothes. Your clothes are all ruined. These are the ones I bought in advance, and they're perfect to wear now. Looking at the clothes in his arms, Chun felt a warmth in his heart, and couldn't help but gently hug her through the clothes. Thank you, Mushiwe. Bai Mushiwe's pretty face flushed slightly, and she hurriedly stuffed the clothes into his arms. Don't say these things. Hurry up and change your clothes. Get ready to go to the martial arts school. After saying that, she blushed and ran back to her room. The once aloof goddess had completely lost her usual cool demeanor. Upon opening the door and seeing this scene, Yizing couldn't help but laugh and said, "She really is still a young girl, already shy?" After getting ready, the three of them took a car to Shueiyun Martial Arts School. Chun sat between the two women, feeling extremely satisfied. As soon as the luxury car pulled up in front of the martial arts gym, everyone's eyes turned to it. When they saw that Bai Mushiwe and Yizing were accompanying Chun as he got out of the car, the scene erupted in chaos. Many boys were instantly devastated when they saw Chun walk down between the two goddesses. Chun ignored the surrounding discussions and walked forward calmly. Noticing the envious and jealous looks from everyone, Yizing deliberately took Chun arm and smiled even more charmingly. Just then, another luxury car slowly came to a stop. Wang Tingfei got out of the car, staring intently at Chun's back, his fists clenched, his eyes filled with resentment. Chun, why is it always you? Bai Mushiwe was like this, and she is still like this now. One day, I will make sure you die. Chapter 16 Bai Mushiwe's domineering protection of her husband. As soon as Chun entered the martial arts gym, the old man in the security booth recognized him and jokingly asked, "Young man, are you going to jump off the building again today?" Yizing couldn't help but laugh, her gaze falling on Chun. The reason she had noticed him in the first place was indeed because this guy was always running off the rooftop to jump off, which made him too conspicuous. Before, Chun couldn't cultivate and could only watch others grow stronger, which frustrated him greatly, leading him to vent his emotions by jumping off buildings. But now things are different. He can cultivate now, so why would he continue to cause trouble? Chun smiled and said to the old man, "Grandpa, I'm sorry, you won't see me jump off the building anymore, and you won't hear my heartfelt words. Now, I'll give you one last piece of advice." The old man immediately became interested and urged him, "Tell me about it." Chun looked up and smiled, then said loudly, "The rock rises with the wind, soaring 90,000 miles high." The old man sat in the security booth, repeating these two lines over and over, finding them increasingly meaningful. Finally, he couldn't help but laugh. What a fine line. What a fine line. Young man, you have great talent. Chun waved his hand. "Grandpa, please enjoy your meal. I'm going to school now." The old man watched his retreating figure, his expression becoming even kinder, and his eyes filled with more appreciation. After arriving at the training room, Yizing stayed by Chun side and talked to him. She would have to wait outside when the instructor arrived, since she wasn't a martial arts student and couldn't stay to listen to the lesson. As soon as Wang Tengfei entered, he saw Yizing chatting intimately with Chun. His chest heaved with anger, and his murderous intent intensified. When had he, the eldest son of the Wang family, ever suffered such humiliation? In Tianlin City, what woman couldn't Wang Tengfei have? Yet Bai Mushiwe and Yizing didn't take him seriously, and instead got so close to Chun, whom he looked down on the most. Soon, instructor Yuwensher entered the training room, and everyone returned to their seats. Yuwensher was in his 30s, wore glasses, and looked somewhat refined. He also had a good relationship with the apprentices. Seeing Chun sitting in the back, Yuwensher was a little surprised. Chun, you didn't come to cultivate on Friday. I thought you were going to give up." Chun smiled and said, "Why would I give up? I still have to take the martial arts exam." These words immediately drew laughter from the training room. To them, it was utterly a pipe dream that someone who wasn't even a martial artist would say they wanted to participate in a martial arts exam open only to martial artists. Yuwensher hesitated for a moment, then finally sighed and said, Chun, you should go and take the civil service exam." Chun didn't explain. In the past, he might not have had much confidence, but now it's different. He's very confident in himself. Yuwensher quickly got to the point. Today is the end-of-month assessment, and there are only 3 months left until the martial arts exam. For each assessment to come, the martial arts school will provide resources as rewards, The higher the score, the more resources you will receive. Upon hearing this, everyone immediately perked up. Yuan Shi continued. The reward for first place this time